Welcome to the Near Memo, a weekly conversation about search, social, and commerce. What happened, why it matters, and the implications for local.
Well, one of the things we haven't talked about, just as an aside that we can reserve for another session, is we haven't really talked about it at length. Is the amazing stuff going on with all the image creation, the text to image creation that's happening. It's pretty major stuff and very interesting on multiple fronts. But instead of talking about that, we will turn to you, David, and Apple this week released iOS 16. A lot of downloads already from that, and one big change is they put the search box on the home screen, which we had talked about when they announced that. And so what did you find in your exploration of that?
Sure. So I was very excited to try this out, prompted by a tweet from you, in fact, sharing that you had been able to download it and were already experimenting with the search box. So yeah, it's at the bottom, not all the way at the bottom, but probably 80% of the way down the screen. Little subtle gray bubble that says search now on the home screen. And as someone who to this day can't figure out when and how to swipe left to get to whatever the screen is to the left of the home screen. So I basically never used search previously. So I will say it is, from a user standpoint, very easy now to access the search bar. And the search results are, in my mind, unfortunately disappointing, because I would have liked to see a real, I don't know, threat is not exactly the right word, but something that was an alternative to Google. Thank you. And I just don't think it's there by a very long stretch. Mike, you've pointed out previously that Apple's mental model of search, or working model of search, is one that includes results, maybe even biased towards results from the device itself, as opposed to results out in the world. So you see, snippets of text messages that you've sent or sent and received with friends. You may see, in your case, Mike, you've done a lot of photo surfacing in your photo library with search results. That may be something that I find useful over time, but I think as a starting point, to me, the results are just very, very poor when you're talking about things that a typical Google search would answer. And whether that's a straight sort of classic 10 blue link text result, whether that is a answer box, whether that is a local result, I found all three of those things sorely lacking. I asked a question, who's running for governor in Oregon? And Siri gave me our current governor and the guy who ran against her in 2018, not the three candidates that are running next month or 2 months from now. The local results are largely powered by Yelp, and as outside of restaurants, I think were incredibly poor. The web results were just bad. They weren't. They just were very low authority sources, is what I would say. And the number of times that Apple didn't even attempt to answer my search, they just directed me to a link in Brave as my default browser on the iPhone. They directed me to a link in Brave where I could get search results from Brave Search. And so it seems like an incredibly unambitious release. And it seems to me that they are running the same risk that came back to bite them with Apple Maps, where the first product, even though it is very visible and very easy, frictionless experience to get into, that the results are so bad that they're going to poison the well against usage. And I, again, as someone who's not necessarily an Apple fan, but who wants to see a real alternative to Google, I feel like Apple is the company that's best positioned to do that. This was very disappointing. And I would contrast that with our coverage of Yep.com, from the search engine from Ahrefs earlier this year. They obviously, they have a huge problem in terms of trying to attract eyeballs to it. But I think all three of us had a fairly positive initial experience with the quality of the results. We found the UI refreshing. I found none of those things with iOS search, which was just shocking for a company that clearly has invested a substantial number of resources if they felt like it was ready to move to the home screen. And it was a huge disappointment. So
Mike, do you want to defend Apple?
Well, one is I am curious about user behaviors and user desires. So I think that to a large extent, finding stuff on your phone is problematic, and that has gotten better for me anyways. And I'm frequently looking for old notes or old emails, and and movies and all that stuff is in one spot. So in that sense, it serves that need. The other though is I'm curious whether their relationship with Google to the tune of $9 to $15 billion perhaps inhibits
them,
their desire to offer a alternative web
competitor.
experience. Yeah. I mean, why would they? They're making so much money now until such time as they have to. They don't have to.
Yeah, I think that's going to take a hit from all the antitrust activity going on, but we'll see. I think I agree with you that that's in there. That's in the mix in terms of their perhaps reluctance to do a full-blown Google competitor.
I mean, you even see it though in something like local, where reviews they have been so ambivalent about reviews, right? Where they prefer Yelp reviews, and if there are no Yelp reviews, then they will show their own reviews. But so in the case, or no TripAdvisor reviews. So if it's already on Yelp, there's going to be Yelp reviews. If it's already on TripAdvisor, there's probably TripAdvisor reviews. So it's odd
that may be a contractual thing for them.
Could be.
I don't know. Well, what's interesting here is user expectations, which you just alluded to, and David, you kind of talked about indirectly. So what is the purpose of this? Is this some comprehensive search solution that's designed to give you, material or information on your own device and the internet? I mean, they would probably say yes. It's this federated display, and they've got their knowledge graph, and they've got your emails and your notes, and then they've got they can send you out to the default engine or whatever. And for them, it's probably kind of addressing multiple user scenarios and needs. We find it lacking as a web search alternative to Google. They probably don't look at it through that lens, and then there are the inhibiting factors that we just talked about. But I agree that if they do, it does come off as a kind of haphazard, mediocre experience right now. But I don't think that they would ever create something that was like Google, where that a query in that box would yield a page that looked like Google. I don't think you would ever see that. So the question for them is, it's really a kind of UI UX treatment, putting aside kind of the index and whatever backend stuff that they're doing that may be lacking. And what's weird is, why are they moving it onto the home screen? That's the question in my mind. Why are they moving it onto the home screen? Are they doing that to make it more prominent so they'll get more? I mean, they're making this ads push, right? They're hiring all these people in their ad group. They're going to put more kinds of ads in more places. We're supposed to be getting ads and maps, which means local search ads. So why are they doing this? Is this to then set up a paid search advertising? I mean, they wouldn't do it exclusively for that reason, but is that contemplated in this move? And if that is contemplated, then they need traffic. And if they need traffic, then they have to improve the experience. And it seems like that would be a relatively easy thing for them to do, given their resources.
There's a more benign.
I did get a handful of results that were sort of classic Google web link results. There were only 3 of them by default, but there were like classic 10 blue link results for a handful of searches that I did.
Yeah.
So
they can do it.
They can do it. It's not that they're sort of,
when they have a bot, they have a crawler.
It's not that they're fundamentally opposed to a Google-like search result experience. I just think that they don't know when to return that very well right now is what I would say, and that the results they return there are pretty poor. So,
well, I'm not saying that it should duplicate Google. I'm just saying that what we have come to expect as web search, I don't think they're going to do. And
I don't think we know for sure. I think if they, if the $9 billion is what's holding them back, I have a feeling that they would get there with ad revenue pretty darn quickly, given the number of eyeballs that are going to be invested in this search box. So
I would add here, one, that Apple always takes the long view, and they don't always invest at the rate we think they should. But Maps, as you pointed out earlier, is a good example. They've been tweaking
10 years.
10 years to get to decency. And, Spotlight and integrated Siri and Spotlight is similar length. But
well, Siri, when was Siri acquired?
2010 or something. It's a long time ago.
So a long time
but
ago.
Spotlight is their real effort, and they're trying to integrate into a single user experience. That's complicated. The second thing, though, is that my whole life is on my iPhone, and good local search, local in the sense of local to my device or local to my cloud, is really important. And I am constantly looking up things across the various tools, whether it's calendars or appointments or notes or so for me, photos is a massive improvement because I do so many screenshots. I can now search those photos based on text in the screenshot. So if I want to see all the screenshots of Barbara Oliver, I type Barbara Oliver and up comes a list of all the photos.
20,000 screenshots.
20, that's right.
Screenshots. Local search presentation.
Exactly. So for me, that is a valuable thing because my whole life is there and it is valuable. So I don't know how that relates to others. Obviously not as important to you. So that's my defense. I mean, it's not really a defense, but I agree. Their web and local stuff has always sucked, and it continues to.
Well, I wouldn't say that the local stuff sucks, but I would say it's sort of threadbare, in a way, right? It's just like, if you're looking quickly for a phone number or an address or something, it works, but it's not going to give you much more than that.
Thanks for joining David, Mike, and Greg. To stay on top of the latest developments in local, subscribe to our newsletter at nearmedia.co. We'll see you next week.